Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring excerpts from The Ultimate Survival Foods. It's a guide to forgotten foods and preservation techniques. So imagine like a scenario. No supermarkets, no fridges, no modern conveniences. How do people not just survive, but thrive? Let's find out.
It's fascinating to consider the resourcefulness of past generations. They had a deep understanding of nature and knew how to utilize every part of their resources.
Exactly. And the man behind this treasure trove of knowledge is Claude Davis. He retired to his family farm and got fascinated by the self-reliance of his ancestors. He combined his grandfather's notes with extensive research and wrote The Lost Superfoods.
Claude isn't a doomsday prepper. He's more of a historian with practical skills. He believes in being prepared for potential hardships, and the book reflects that. It's not just about survival, but about thriving, with nutritious, delicious food, even in challenging circumstances.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What's actually in The Lost Superfoods?
The book details over 126 foods that can be stored long-term without refrigeration. It includes clear, step-by-step instructions for even beginners, plus nutritional information for each food. It aims to help people build a stockpile that could last 3 to 6 months or even longer.
That's impressive. Talk about peace of mind. But let's get to the good stuff, the superfoods themselves. You mentioned some intriguing examples.
Absolutely. One that stands out is the U.S. Army's Doomsday Ration, developed during the Cold War. It was designed to be incredibly cheap, potentially never spoiling, and capable of feeding an entire population in a crisis.
Hold on. A doomsday ration.
That sounds intense.
It was. And they even managed to make it cost-effective, just 37 cents a day per adult. They achieved this by utilizing readily available ingredients, like wheat, powdered milk, and sugar, combined in a way that maximized caloric intake and shelf life.
37 cents a day. That's less than my morning coffee. Okay, you've got my attention. What else is there? Then there's the Leningrad Siege superfood. During World War II, the city of Leningrad was under siege for almost 900 days. Food was incredibly scarce. But this dish, traditionally made with cow feet but adaptable to any meat plento, helped people survive a horrific famine.
Wow, that's powerful. Using whatever you have to get through tough times.
Exactly. It highlights the ingenuity and resilience of people facing unimaginable hardship. The key to its effectiveness was using bones and cartilage to create a nutrient-rich broth, packed with essential minerals and collagen. It provided sustenance when traditional food sources were unavailable.
This is already making me rethink my pantry staples.
It really makes you appreciate the resourcefulness of our ancestors. And speaking of maximizing nutrition, there's also a forgotten shelf-stable fat that's rich in butyric acid.
Okay, break that down for me. What is butyric acid and why is it important?
Butyric acid is a short-chain fatty acid that's incredibly beneficial for gut health. It promotes the growth of beneficial bacteria and helps your body absorb nutrients from other foods. Think of it as a secret weapon for maximizing your food stockpile's effectiveness. Claude specifically highlights rendered animal fats like lard head, which are naturally high in butyric acid and can be stored for extended periods without refrigeration.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about quality and getting the most out of every bite. That makes a lot of sense. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the lost superfoods, be sure to visit superfoods.noself.com. That's superfoods.noself.com. There you can learn more about Claude Davis and his work.
There's also a Great Depression-era food in the book that played a vital role in helping Americans through incredibly tough times. It proves that survival food doesn't have to be bland and boring. This specific food, which we'll delve into later, boasts a 2-year shelf life and was a testament to the ingenuity of people facing food scarcity.
Okay, I am definitely intrigued. But before we move on, let's take a moment to connect this back to our listeners. Imagine having these skills and knowledge. What food from your pantry would you want to preserve long term? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's a fascinating question. I imagine there are many foods we take for granted today that could be preserved using these forgotten techniques.
Absolutely. Think about the possibilities. Now I'm ready to uncover more of these lost treasures. What other gems are hiding in this book?
Oh, there are so many. For instance, did you know that back in the 14th century, the Dutch figured out how to store cheese for over 2 years at room temperature? No refrigeration needed?
2 years. That's incredible. I'm lucky if I can keep cheese mold-free for 2 weeks. What was their secret?
They understood the science behind preservation. The key was using a specific type of cheese, Gouda, known for its low moisture content. They then coated it in a layer of beeswax and cloth, which acted as a natural barrier against spoilage. This technique prevented mold growth, and allowed the cheese to age beautifully over time. It's amazing what they achieved with such simple techniques. And it wasn't just the Dutch. Claude covers other fascinating methods from around the world. For example, during the American Civil War, there was a surprisingly long-lasting food that saved countless lives.
Oh, wow, during the Civil War. I'm guessing rations were pretty scarce back then. What kind of food kept people going?
It was actually a type of syrup made from sorghum. It was incredibly versatile. You could eat it straight, use it as a sweetener, or even ferment it into a beverage.
Sorghum syrup. That's not something I would have expected. What made it so effective as a survival food?
Sorghum is a hardy grain that thrives in various climates, making it a reliable crop even in times of war. The syrup is shelf-stable and packs a good amount of calories and nutrients, especially iron and B vitamins. It was a real lifesaver for soldiers and civilians alike.
That's fascinating. It's amazing how something so seemingly simple could have such a significant impact. And speaking of simple, what about meat? How do people preserve meat without refrigeration?
Claude covers several methods, but one that stands out is the Ottoman Empire's coated meat technique. They were able to preserve meat for extended periods, even during military campaigns.
Coated meat, I'm intrigued. What was this special coating made of?
They used a mixture of spices, salt, and dried herbs. This coating acted as a natural preservative, creating a barrier against bacteria and slowing down spoilage. It was a simple yet effective technique that allowed them to transport and store meat without refrigeration.
That's brilliant. It's like a natural version of vacuum sealing. It really shows how much we can learn from the ingenuity of past generations.
Absolutely. There's a wealth of knowledge waiting to be rediscovered. Another example is a fermented soup from Turkey called tarhana. People relied on it when crops failed for 3 years in a row.
3 years. Wow, that must have been an incredibly difficult time. What made this soup so resilient?
Tarhana is unique because it's fermented, which means it can last for years on the shelf. The fermentation process eliminates harmful bacteria and creates a tangy, flavorful soup that's packed with essential B vitamins.
So it's not just about extending shelf life, it's about boosting the nutritional value of the food as well.
Yeah.
It sounds like fermentation is a real game changer when it comes to long-term food storage. I'm definitely adding tarhana to my list of things to research.
It's definitely worth exploring. And if we're talking about food that fueled resilience, we can't forget the superfood that sustained the legendary Mongol hordes of Genghis Khan. Imagine conquering vast territories on horseback. You need food that's portable, long-lasting, and energizing.
Okay, I'm hooked.
Yeah.
What kept those warriors going?
It was a long-lasting probiotic drink called kumis. It's made from fermented mare's milk and was a staple for the Mongols. Not only did it provide essential nutrients and probiotics, but it also counteracted the negative effects of eating processed foods, which would have been valuable during long military campaigns.
Fermented mare's milk. That's a new one for me. But it makes sense probiotics are essential for gut health, especially when your diet is limited.
Exactly. And get this, kumis was so effective that it was even adopted by the Royal British Navy to combat scurvy.
Wow, from Mongol warriors to British sailors. This kumis has quite the resume. What I find so fascinating is that these lost superfoods aren't some exotic, hard-to-find ingredients. They're often simple, everyday foods that have been prepared and preserved using techniques that have been passed down for generations.
You're absolutely right. It's a reminder that we don't need fancy equipment or expensive ingredients to be self-sufficient. It's about rediscovering the knowledge and skills that our ancestors relied on.
And if you're eager to rediscover those skills yourself, The Lost Superfoods by Claude Davis is a great place to start. You can find more information at superfoods.noself.com. That's superfoods.noself.com.
Now let's talk about another intriguing superfood from the book. Imagine you're a ninja on a top-secret mission, eating to stay hidden for months. What do you eat?
That's a tough one. Definitely not ordering takeout. What did ninjas rely on for sustenance?
Claude reveals a ninja superfood that kept those elite assassins well-fed on long missions. It was a recipe known to very few, but all the ingredients can be found right here in America.
Okay, color me intrigued. I'm picturing something incredibly nutritious and energy-packed. What exactly is this ninja superfood?
It's a combination of nutrient-dense ingredients like nuts, seeds, and dried fruits that were pounded into a paste and then formed into small, portable cakes. These cakes were lightweight, calorie-rich, and could be easily carried on long missions. They provided sustained energy and essential nutrients, allowing ninjas to remain stealthy and focused.
That's amazing. It's like an ancient version of an energy bar.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense. Ninjas needed to be agile and alert. and their diet played a crucial role in their success. But let's bring it back to modern times. What about those of us who are stocked up on modern conveniences? Like, what happens if the power goes out and I have a freezer full of food?
That's a great question. And Claude addresses it in The Lost Superfoods. He explains exactly what to do with frozen food during a power outage to prevent spoilage and waste.
Okay, that's reassuring. Can you give us a sneak peek of some of his advice?
One of his most practical tips is to place a penny on top of a frozen container. If the power comes back on and the penny has sunk to the bottom, you know the food thawed and refroze, which could be unsafe to eat. It's a simple trick that can save you from potential foodborne illnesses.
That's a brilliant tip. I'm definitely going to remember that one. But let's go back in time again. I read something about preserving meat over a fire. No fancy equipment, just fire. And what was that smoky, salty stuff?
You're thinking of chili saltpeter. Our ancestors used it to cure meat over a dead fire, creating a natural dehydrator and smokehouse in one. It's a technique that requires no electricity and minimal supervision.
Chili saltpeter. How does that work?
Chili saltpeter is a natural mineral that contains sodium nitrate. When used in curing meat, it inhibits the growth of harmful bacteria and adds a distinctive flavor. The low heat and smoke from the fire slowly dry the meat, preserving it for months at room temperature. If you vacuum seal the cured meat, it can last for up to 2 years.
2 years. I'm blown away by the ingenuity of these techniques. It's like a masterclass in sustainable living.
It truly is. And speaking of sustainability, what about fruit? Fresh fruit doesn't exactly have a long shelf life.
Right. I'm always struggling to keep berries from going bad in the fridge. How did people preserve fruit without modern refrigeration?
Claude shares a fantastic method for making fruit leather. It's a delicious and long-lasting way to preserve your favorite fruits.
Fruit leather. Like those chewy fruit snacks I never thought of making my own. What's the process like?
It's surprisingly simple. You puree the fruit, spread it thinly on a dehydrator sheet, and let it dry until it becomes leathery. It's a great way to capture the flavor of summer fruits and enjoy them throughout the year.
That sounds amazing. It's a healthy and delicious snack that can be enjoyed for months. I'm definitely going to try making my own fruit leather. But let's be honest, is survival food all bland and boring?
Not at all. Claude emphasizes that survival food can and should be delicious. He even includes a recipe for his family's famous dehydrated marinara sauce.
Dehydrated marinara sauce. That sounds pretty innovative. How does it work?
You basically spread the sauce thinly on dehydrator sheets and let it dry completely. It becomes brittle and can be crumbled into flakes or stored in airtight containers. When you're ready to use it, just add water and heat it up.
That's brilliant. It's like a flavor-packed pantry staple that can be used in so many different dishes.
Exactly. It's a great example of how you can adapt modern flavors and recipes to long-term food storage techniques.
This entire deep dive has been so eye-opening. It's inspiring to see how much we can learn from the resourcefulness and ingenuity of our ancestors. What would you say is the most surprising thing you learned from the Lost Superfoods? Expert speaker.
For me, it was the sheer diversity of techniques and ingredients. From the U.S. Army's doomsday ration to Viking superfoods that age like fine wine, it's evident that our ancestors were masters of preservation and resourcefulness.
It really makes you realize how much knowledge we've lost touch with over the years. It's like we've become so reliant on modern conveniences that we've forgotten the basic skills that sustained humanity for centuries.
You're exactly right. But thankfully, we have people like Claude Davis who are dedicated to preserving and sharing this knowledge. Books like The Lost Superfoods give us a chance to rediscover those skills and apply them to our lives today.
And it's not just about practicality, it's also about connecting with our past, understanding the ingenuity of those who came before us, and perhaps even gaining a newfound appreciation for the abundance we have today.
I couldn't agree more. It's a humbling experience to delve into these techniques and realize that our ancestors were able to not only survive, but thrive in conditions that we would find incredibly challenging.
It's inspiring, really. It makes you think about the resilience of the human spirit and our capacity for innovation, even in the face of adversity.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that we have the potential to be just as resourceful and resilient as our ancestors. We just need to tap into that knowledge and those skills.
Well said. And for our listeners who are feeling inspired to tap into that knowledge and learn more about the Lost Superfoods, where can they go to start their journey?
I highly recommend visiting Claude Davis's website at superfoods.noself.com. That is superfoods.noself.com. You'll find a wealth of information on lost superfoods, preservation techniques and self-sufficiency tips. It's a fantastic resource for anyone who's interested in learning more about how to thrive, even in challenging times.
Thank you, expert speaker, for taking us on this fascinating deep dive into the lost superfoods. It's been an incredibly insightful and thought-provoking conversation.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy exploring the wisdom of the past and sharing those discoveries with others.
And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope you've gained some valuable knowledge, a renewed sense of appreciation for the resourcefulness of our ancestors, and perhaps even a bit of inspiration to embark on your own journey towards self-sufficiency. Remember, you can learn more about Claude Davis and the lost superfoods at superfoods.noself.com. That is superfoods.noself.com. Thank you for listening to the Lost Superfoods online podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those pantries stocked.